Welcome to the FasCat Podcast. I'm your host, Frank Overton. Some call me the Big Cat, and I'm here to take your cycling to the next level. In each episode, I'll share my 20 years of coaching experience from Tour de France pros to us Masters Joes to help you ride faster and farther. At FasCat, we're on a mission to share our knowledge to help you ride faster and have more fun while training. You'll learn fundamental FasCat concepts like sweet spot, switching from base to race, winning in the kitchen, crying in the dojo, and our favorite FTFP. If you listen closely, you should be able to feel yourself getting faster.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the FasCat Podcast. Ben Delaney here with the Big Cat, Frank Overton. We're talking off-season training. How are you, sir?
Doing very fine, thank you. Whoop whoop.
You know, it still feels like summer, although, you know, the leaves are starting to fall a bit, but it's warm, but the kids are back in school.
Off-season is in the air.
Off-season is in the air.
Even though we have, like, some fairly good racing coming up.
Yeah, plenty of it coming up. Yeah, just this coming weekend, David Sachs and some other FasCats are headed up to Gravel Nationals.
Yeah.
Here in Gering, Nebraska.
3 hours away, thereabouts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, you're racing yourself.
Yeah, I am. I've got my fingers crossed. I would love to get an old man jersey.
There you go. Remind the listeners what category you're in so they can not have hopes.
45 plus.
There you go.
45 plus. So cool. In there with James Walsh and Phil Tinsman and some other hitters. But you know, it's bike racing. It's not always the strongest person, and I'm counting on that. I'm counting on some dumb luck and some years of FasCat training in a while. But
yeah. I was talking with David Sachs at length about the race and how it helps to be a roadie or have road tactic knowledge for these races, or especially one like Gravel Nats.
Yeah, I think wind and the sand are going to be the X factors. So being comfortable riding in an echelon is going to pay huge dividends. And then if you've got an engine like David does, my money's on him for the 40 plus. So. Same.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's got roadie tactic knowledge as well.
Yeah, he's no dummy.
Yeah,
he's no dummy. And then we've got USA Cycling's got $60,000 on the line for the pro women and pro men. So the hitters are coming out for that. So that's going to be cool to see also. So yeah, the season is not over necessarily, but we're wrapping it up here. And listeners, we are similarly not all the way through an 8-pod how-to series. This is number 5. You have probably heard our season end training, season review, setting goals for next season, and then just this past week, Coach Ricky Arnepool was talking about how to take a post-season break. And what could have been a surprise for some folks was that a post-season break doesn't necessarily mean you're divorcing your bike and locking it up in the dungeon for months and months. You can ride the bike, and at some point you do need to take a total break off. FasCat is long recommended, 3 weeks, but it can also mean just going out and having fun. Like David Sachs, for instance, he was like, okay, after Gravel Nats, I'm looking forward to just riding my mountain bike.
Yeah. I am the reason why we have to say that, because previously I've said no bike for 2 weeks, and it works very well for the literal translation, but we aim to educate and provide you with flexible training solutions. So you can still ride for fun, and then now everyone's going to say, but you said no bike for 2 weeks, so it could be either or.
Yeah. Well, just so you know, like you weren't on that last part, but the way Ricky set it up was, the off season can be a few months. Yes. For folks. So it can be both those things, of a time when you're totally off the bike. And he gave examples of how some pros will take, a month, maybe even more, completely off the bike.
Yes.
Different type of animal.
Yeah.
Than
our pet cheetah
than
here.
You and I.
Everyone, but before you Masters athletes want to take a month off, the amount of break you should take is inversely proportional to the length of time you've been in cycling and the length of time the amount of time you're going to put into the off season. So the pros can take a month-long break because they're going to train their brains off full time for the next 4 months after that break. But us Masters, we don't have the time for that. So 2 weeks is darn near perfect. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't lose too much, you lose just enough. the eraser board gets wiped clean. You get your mojo back, and then you're ready to go.
Consistency. That applies in the micro and the macro cycles for sure. I just want to clear that up because some people hear off-season break and think, just totally off the bike for until March or something, and then go find it and hope things go well, which isn't going to work well.
Also, one thing that we've been working on behind the scenes to help you with a postseason break, Coach Andrew and I have a transition plan, and it is what if you want a plan to do during your postseason break. This is it, and we will have that live in the Optimize app. Maybe this Friday. That would be September. I lost track of the date. The September 9th.
Mid-September,
But don't get your hopes up. It's a lot of off days. It's a lot of suggestion for yoga, maybe some cross training, swinging some kettlebells, maybe not riding on Saturday like you have done the other 50 weeks of the year, things like that.
If you are a first-time listener, welcome. Welcome to the FasCat podcast. And Optimize is our year-round training solution. It's got all of the training plans and workouts that Coach Frank and the others have put together over the years, working with athletes from world elite to everyday folks. And all that unlimited training plans also comes with another critical piece, which is professional guidance.
Yes.
Fancy tools are all fine and good, but if you don't know how to work on your car, it's not necessarily going to help you out so much. But within Optimize, you can ask our staff of pro coaches, hey, which tool should I use and when and in what order? Tell them what you're training for, well down the road, and then they will help you stack up the plans, and all of which can be tailored to your available training time. So you've got the tools laid out, and you've got a roadmap there. It's basically almost like having a personal one-on-one coach, but at a fraction of the cost. So that's Optimize. Go check it out if you haven't already.
Yeah, it's like getting custom support to set up your annual training plan, your ATP. We do that all the time. We'd be happy to help you all, and that's what we're going to podcast next about.
Absolutely. So on this pod, we're gonna hit some of the subjects that Frank and team have detailed in written form, if you prefer to do that. So, for instance, the 5 pillars of the off season, which addresses, as Frank just mentioned, the ATP, the annual training plan, fall foundation, weights, sweet spot, and intervals. Those are, the 5 pillars of FasCat's off season training. You can read about those online. Go check that out. And then we're also going to be talking about, some plans you can follow with the key one, the big one being the 30 weeks of off season, which is weights and sweet spot. So that's what we're going to be diving into today. Just telling you, what you need to do, when to do it, and why this off season. Before we get into it though, Frank, let's have our review of the week.
Yeah. Review of the week comes to us from Newbie Cyclist, August 22nd, last month. He says, I'm feeling optimized already. After a tough season of selling a house, buying a house, getting COVID, and a couple more of life struggles, I was lost. I had been a longtime listener of the podcast and enjoyed the back and forth banter and the witty humor. It reminds me of me and my cycling buddies. Anyhow, I started the 16 weeks of Sweet Spot in the middle of the season, and now after 8 weeks, I'm feeling a lot stronger and more confident on the bike. I reached out in the Optimize app to ask a coach for some advice, and as luck would have it, I got the big cat himself, Frank Overton. La la la. He quickly answered my questions and gave me a way forward to
prep for the next season.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, I'm glad that I was able to, that was probably during my customer service shift. Yes. I have a customer service shift. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody takes pulls here, maybe not Sunday night at 3 a.m., but, banker's hours, Monday through Friday. And we've got Christian over in France taking the
midnight.
Taking the late shift. So
yeah. Midnight Mountain Time. It's 8 a.m. his time. We're not cruel and unusual.
Yeah, so thanks for that.
Yeah.
Newbie cyclist.
Yeah, so what we're going to talk about today, really, we're going to talk primarily from our 30-week off-season plan. And we're going to talk about modifications if you need to, because 30 weeks drops you off from the date of this podcast, April 8th. But really, what the 30-week off-season plan, it's 3 plans in one. And those are our 3-week fall foundation, our 10 weeks of weightlifting, and then our 16 weeks of sweet spot. And if you add all those up, you'll say that's 29 weeks, but we added a rest week in there, and we've optimized it to all mesh together. And then we'll also talk about modifications you can make to make the 30 weeks work within your time frame, such as maybe you're going to do BWR Arizona or Mid-South, which are in February and March, and how to make those work for your timing.
Before we jump into this, I'd like to brag on you a little bit, Frank, and brag on the team as to where these plans come from. You know, there's been some chatter going around recently about AI, right? Like AI is doing everything. It's taking all of our jobs. It can build a car. It can build a house. It can write a training plan. And
it can ride your bike for you.
It's going to win the race. AI just won the race.
Yeah.
Listeners, the training plans here come from, as we mentioned at the top of the show, a combined 75 years of experience of Frank and the other coaches working with a variety of athletes, some frankly through trial and error in the early days, working closely with other coaches, attending professional seminars, doing the science, and then also seeing where the rubber meets the road. Does this work in the lab? Yes. Okay. Does it work with athletes? Does it work with what type of athletes? And so years and years and years have gone into what is now a pretty handy, super easy to follow training plan.
Yeah.
But not all training plans, my friends, are created equal. So I just want to put that out as a point of clarification, that it's not just plug and play. I mean, you can get training plans at least once upon a time in the back of a magazine, and those probably fine.
Not really.
But where was that coming from? Just want to let you know where this is coming from.
What Ben is talking about is, we've been using, this is like our coaching philosophy, which we've been using for the past 20 years. And then, it's the way that we were designing training plans for our one-on-one coached athletes. And obviously we take their feedback and their performance and how they go from following these different phases. And, we improved them and iterated them over the years. And then long-time loyal listeners will remember we released those plans in 2018 when we started this podcast, and we listened to all the feedback that we've gotten. And of course, we've made them better and better. The 30-week plan that we're going to be talking about is the second generation of the 32-week plan that we had for from 2018 to 2020, and then we revised it based on a lot of the feedback that we got, made it better, we hope, and that's primarily what we're talking from today. And then one quick point of note with regards to training plans: we don't let anything come in our way of recommending to you what we believe is the best. And so it is not just what's in the software. For instance, we will say you need to go to the gym, and you will need to do squats and leg presses and leg curls, which is not a software feature. We will say you need to do long rides, not just 1 hour rides, 5-6 times a week. We'll give you strength and conditioning videos and kettlebell swings and yoga and rest days and movements with bands that we show you videos of and teach you how to do it. But it's not like you're stuck in a software platform, which there's fine and dandy training plans out there, but they keep you within that software.
Sure. And so many people, I'm just thinking of my friends who like to have some training guidance, but don't want to be staring at their computer following a bar graph for every single ride, because that kills the joy of cycling. And a lot of what they want to do is, do a group ride by themselves, enjoy cycling, and also have some guidance for when the rubber meets the road. Okay, when I do specific intervals, what should I be doing? And I don't want to have to figure it out for myself. It would be great if there was a coaching company who had spent decades putting this together, and I can just follow that. So that's part of the training plans. It's a real world solution, not, as Frank said, just dictating every pedal stroke of every bike ride, because that way lies madness.
Yeah, that's a one-way path to burnout town.
So speaking of, let's talk about the first chunk of our complete off-season 30-week plan, which starts with 3 weeks of Fall Foundation. Coach Jake was singing the praises of Fall Foundation just a couple podcasts ago about it being a wonderful time of the year, not just in terms of temperature. It's getting cooler, the leaves are changing, but you can enjoy a lot of the fitness you've worked so hard for all summer in a relaxed, fun manner. Like David Sachs, pull the mountain bike out, go do some big rides in the mountain.
Yeah.
Do some leaf peeping.
Yes. Fall foliage rides.
Yeah. So what, it's helpful for me to break in chunks. What exactly is the 3-week fall foundation, which is a component of our 30-week off-season plan?
Yeah, so the Fall Foundation primarily serves as a 3-week phase reintroduction to training following the 2-week postseason break to prepare you to go into the weight room. And to prepare you to go into the weight room, we use muscle tension intervals. As previously described on previous podcasts, also known as SFRs. Those are the big gear low cadence mashers.
I was doing some of these just on old stages turned up this past couple days ago.
Did your Di2 battery die?
Correct. Died. And it died in the big ring. Normally it'll when it runs low, you can shift from the big ring to the small ring because that takes less juice, but you can't go back up. But for whatever reason, this time it died completely in the big ring. So I was like 52-19
Ouchie.
Up old stage.
Yeah.
Andy Lowe was laughing at me.
Yeah. So listeners, it's really good work to do this in the fall. I describe it as it's like lifting weights on the bike. It's a muscular workout. It's not power or heart rate based. What we're really looking at is the torque and the force on your pedals. And believe it or not, it actually gets your connective tissue, your ligaments and tendons and your skeletal system ready to go into the weight room and lift weights. And it just introduces you to the forces you're going to encounter from weightlifting. And then it's also a really good muscular workout. One thing I tell athletes to think about is a 360-degree pedal stroke. So if you can picture in your mind the bull in bullfighting, and when the bull is about to charge, they scrape their foot along the ground. That's what you can work on with your pedal stroke when you're doing muscle tension intervals. So it's not just mashing with your quads, it's scraping like the bull from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. and then pulling up with your hamstring. And it's also getting your gluteus maximus involved in the power production. So using your butt.
Get your butt in the game. So while you're scraping, you're clenching your cheeks and you're making power from there too. And it's quite a good workout. If you want to work on your pedal stroke even further, get yourself a set of rollers or a fixed gear and do some fixed gear training, or ride on the rollers like Coach Jake does and work on that 360-degree pedal stroke. So the Fall Foundation has muscle tension intervals. Like Ben said, it's got fall foliage rides. It's got suggestions to maybe ride a different kind of bike than what you normally do, such as like mountain biking. If you're a cyclocrosser, you could, just jump in the occasional cyclocross race. Generally, the volume is not as high as what it's going to be later on in the season. I would describe this as not that serious of a training time. This is like a template or like a foundation from which you can follow. So super flexible. If life gets in the way, no big deal. Just move a workout or just skip it and move on. The volume is low. You're not going to see any 5-hour rides. Generally, it's hour and a half to 3 hours on Saturdays. Muscle tensions twice a week. There's some zone 2, still 2 off days per week. Let's talk RPM for folks. Most people ride somewhere like around RPM. Your results may vary, but just, roughly in that like 80 to 90 RPM. Many of us have been watching the Vuelta. Go Sepp Kuss. Go
yes.
Buffs.
Go Buffs.
He spins high and probably a little bit quicker than most of us. But, next time you're on your bike, take a peep at your RPM and see when you're going uphill approximately where you are, if you don't know that offhand. And then compare that to what Frank's going to say, which is the rough RPM range for these MTIs, muscle tension intervals. Muscle tension intervals. What are you shooting for in those?
Yeah, 40 to 60 RPMs. And so what you want to do, if you're doing these outside, put it in your big ring, put it down in your 11, 12, or 13. Ideally, you have a steady grade slope to go up. Like here in Boulder, Colorado, I would recommend heading over to In-Car or Left Hand Canyon. Put it in your big ring, and then the slope and the combination of the slope and the gearing, it really just forces you to pedal 40 to 60 RPMs with high torque. If you have that, great, you're doing it right. On the trainer, for you folks that need to do these indoors for a variety of reasons, what I like to do is with smart trainers these days is manually adjust the tension so it creates so much resistance that it like bogs you down, and so you're kind of also forced to pedal between 40 and 60 RPMs. And again, it's a muscular workout. So if you're, we get to ask this all the time, what's the power heart rate target?
Irrelevant.
Technically, there's not one, but what we can say is if you start going really hard at 50 RPMs, you probably should just increase your resistance to slow down your cadence more. So technically, it kind of comes out to be like a tempo, low sweet spot-ish workout. What I look for in a power file when the muscle tension intervals come in is torque, if your power meter reads it, and then also just double check cadence to make sure it's not too high and then not too low. Don't do 30 because we don't want a knee injury. And but above 60, it's like, okay, just apply more resistance because we know you can get more torque, and more torque equals more force equals more muscular adaptation.
Yeah, and you should be paying attention to a smooth pedal stroke all the way around. Don't fixate on trying to hit a new FTP number. That's not the point.
Right.
Yeah, just focus on a powerful but smooth stroke.
Yeah.
And from that, down the road will come more power. But right now, don't worry about the wattage numbers.
Yeah. If you live in a flat region and you want to try these outdoors, if you have a wind opportunity, go do these into a headwind. I've seen that work. Yeah, headwind. Yeah.
Give us an example of a week within the fall foundation period of like just what Monday through Sunday looks like, just ballpark.
Yeah, Monday, Friday's off. Tuesday might be like tempo. Wednesday might be a fun group ride or just like maybe a sweet spot workout. We like to have athletes do muscle tension intervals when their legs are already tired. It's a better adaptation. So generally muscle tension intervals occur on Thursdays and Sundays. Friday's off, and then, Saturday is the fun ride, the fall foliage ride, the mountain bike ride, a variety of choices. And we do that for 3 weeks. So the muscle tension intervals start off small, so like 3x6, 4x7, and they progress upwards. If you're a more of an advanced muscle tensioner, we can give you bottom to top canyon muscle tension intervals where it would say, ride like Sunshine Canyon in Boulder, Colorado, from bottom to top, and that'll take, could be anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, which an advanced level can handle. But for the basic and the intermediate plans, you might progress up to like 3x10, 4x10, 3x12, 3x15. 2x20 is kind of like the tops. That might be the final muscle tension workout in week 3.
A bit about when to apply these. Of course, the answer as with all coaching questions is, well, it depends. Like, what are you doing? What are you aiming on? But if someone, for instance, has like a Belgian waffle ride, Kansas still coming this year, or the rad down in Trinidad, or Big Sugar, would it be appropriate to start in on this fall foundation and start doing muscle tension intervals? Hey, there, I said it.
Muscle tension, MTIs, yeah.
While still having a race or two to go, or should they wait till the racing is completely in the rearview mirror?
Yeah, great question. So if you're still racing, if you're still doing cyclocross, we have like a cyclocross off-season plan. So that would apply in like February, or just whenever you've had your proper postseason break. If you're still doing gravel, Big Sugar, Kansas, so forth, gravel nats, go back, do the 2-week off-season, and then think about doing the 30-week off-season. And so what you want to think about is this. First of all, define the length of your off-season. Is it truly 30 weeks? If so, great. We'll talk about that in a second. If not, then you got to look at what you're going to truncate or skip to fit in the time that you do have. We'll talk about that in a second. One important note, we do have a professional level off-season training program. We made it 20 weeks because pros generally race later and start earlier. So we could only squeeze in a 4-month off-season, which is a 5-month off-season, which is 20 weeks. Is that true? Yes. Okay. Just did the math in my head. But yeah, so for a professional off-season, it could start October 1st and they would be done end of January, which is kind of like how a pro would do. I wouldn't recommend that for the amateur athlete unless you got a lot of time, because there's double days lifting, riding, double days lifting, doing MTIs. It's pretty hefty. It's definitely if you're training full time. But back to the 30-week plan. So you got 3 weeks fall foundation, 10 weeks weights, 16 weeks sweet spot base. Again, if you start that now, that'll drop you off in April. So you'd be fast by May. Perfect for Unbound, the Gravel Locos, anything May and on. If you want to be fast in April, what you can do that has worked well for us in years past is, this is blasphemy to what we just said, but you could skip the 3-week fall foundation, go straight into weights. So then that would afford you 3 weeks. You're going to be finishing the 30-week end of March now, and then you'd have time to switch from base to race to do some intervals before your A race. If you say you start the 30-week off season and everything's going good, but then all of a sudden you're like, I want to race Mid-South, and it's in mid-March. And what do you do? Well, you
ask the coach in Optimize, hey, what should I do? And the coach will steer you properly.
But we'll tell you here right now, which is also, so there's 16 weeks of sweet spot base coming to you after you lift weights for 10 weeks. We could tell you what to skip. Honestly, there's 4 mesocycles in the 16 weeks of sweet spot plan. There's 3 weeks on, 1 week off. That's a mesocycle, and it's the best part of sweet spots, parts 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you could shorten parts 2 and 3, do parts 1 and 4. Parts 4 still has the VO2 max 3, 4, 5 minute VO2 max progression, which is going to drop you off going pretty good. There's a field test to check your progress along the way. We'll talk about the 16 weeks of sweet spot in a minute. But that's the modifications I would look to the 30-week plan. And then if you're like, okay, I want to do that, but I just want to plan it out already. So each of these, the 30-week off season, we have those plans also in their own individual pieces in your training library. So you can just do 3-week fall foundation alone. You can also just start with you can apply the 10-week weightlifting, start there. You can apply 10-week weightlifting and 16 weeks of sweet spot, or you can apply 10-week weightlifting and sweet spots parts 3 and 4. So a lot of infinite possibilities of how to mix and match per your timing. If you don't want to think about all that and you're just like, just tell me what to do, coach, just apply the 30-week plan and go for it. You can make those mods downstream. But that, to answer your question, so you can shorten the 3-week fall foundation, shorten the amount of sweet spot base you do. Do not mess with the 10 weeks of weights. I like to keep that intact. Each phase builds upon each other and culminates in this final phase. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, let's talk weightlifting. Let's talk broadly. Why lift weights? I mean, longtime listeners know this is a subject we have tackled many a time before, and you probably realize that first time or relatively new listeners may have that same question that you once had. So I think it's a good place to start. Cycling is not bodybuilding.
Nope.
Why are we going into the gym to lift weights? What is the objective here? Is it to get huge?
No. The primary objective is to increase your power output on the bike. That's what nets the greatest improvement. So we are looking to increase your threshold, increase your FTP, increase your 1 minute, your 5 minute, your sprint. And that's what we're doing with this. This is a cycling specific weightlifting program. It's not just kettlebell swings. It's not strength and conditioning. This is raw power output. Squats, leg press, leg curl. We do it in 4 phases to borrow the phrase from Dr. Stacy Sims, we lift heavy shit. Yes. We also lift endurance. So we do the medium stuff, high rep. We do the heavy shit, low rep. And then we do the light weights fast, so high velocity. And so what that is, there's
in that order.
Yeah. So I'll describe the 4 phases. So it's a 4-phase program for 10 weeks. The first, 3 weeks of an adaptation phase, 2 weeks of a hypertrophy phase, 2 more weeks of a strength phase, and then 2 more weeks of a power phase. So 2, 2, 2, that's 6 plus 3. I think we have you do 3 weeks of the power phase. So that's 10 full weeks. And so what's an adaptation phase? That's very lightweight, teaching your body how to lift, teaching your body how to squat, and which is the primary goal because you don't want to cause an injury. So we have you start off with a broom handle. Put a broom handle on your back, do a squat. Believe it or not, you'll be kind of sore because
it will feel silly doing it, but it will feel less silly than going in too hard and then the next day having a hard time walking down your stairs because you overdid it.
You'll be doing the side stair
Not that
shuffle.
I've done that multiple times.
Yeah. So the adaptation phase, everyone's like, oh, aggro, going into the gym. It's like, hold on, Nelly. Let's start slow. And so what the adaptation phase is really just preparing your body in a smart, progressive way to lift heavier in the upcoming phases. So you do that. You start with the broom handle. You move on to the squat bar. Then you're adding 2.5, 5 pounds each time you go back into the gym. So you're going to lift for 3 weeks, 3 times per week, generally Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You can move that around. You're riding your bike on the weekend, doing fun, continuing the same style of training from the fall foundation, more fall foliage, more alternative bikes, more flexibility. We give you some off days on the weekends to balance out the rest of the year with family and other, maybe you got to rake the leaves or some yard work or things like that. But generally in the gym, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And before I go on to the hypertrophy phase, let me say this. So that you do need a gym membership and you want to generally most gyms have squat, leg press, leg curl. Obviously everyone knows what a squat is. Leg press is that giant it's not even a machine. It's the sled. Yeah.
You're laying on your back.
Yes. 45-degree angle.
Yeah. And then pushing the thing.
That's the meat.
Yeah.
Most cyclists will be putting north of 200-300 pounds on there to lift. That's the heavy stuff we reference. So you do need a gym for that. And so if you don't, so during COVID 3 years ago, when you couldn't go to the gym, we came up with an at-home resistance training or at-home weightlifting for cycling. And same adaptation, hypertrophy, strength and power, same duration, 10 weeks. What we did is we removed the leg press and we removed the leg curl because those are very gym specific plans exercises. And what we did is we substituted in Viper tube swings and kettlebell swings. So head on over to FasCatCoaching.com if you're wondering what a Viper is. Basically, imagine a telephone pole imagine a telephone pole about 5 feet long with handles on it. So you got both hands holding on to this telephone pole like thing. It's a Viper tube. They come in different weights, and you're doing a lot of single-legged movement. So you're swinging the Viper tube forward and back while you're doing single-legged lunges. It's incredible. It's really, really, really good. Erin Carson taught me how to use it. But again, she's a great strength coach here in town. And yeah, go check out the video we have on the website. And so we put that video in the workouts and show you how to do it. And then same way with the kettlebell, we show you how to swing the kettlebell. And that's the at-home program. But back to the 10-week tried and true plan, squat, leg press, leg curl. And then so you do 3 weeks of Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You can move that around if you need to go to happy hour on Friday. You can move that Friday to Thursday. You can lift back to back during the adaptation phase because guess what? You're going to lift back to back during the hypertrophy phase. This is the hard phase, the hypertrophy. The goal of the hypertrophy phase is to build muscle. This is where you want to put muscle on. And for everyone that's curious, go take a tape measure and be vain. Measure the circumference of your quad. Yeah. Measure it before the hypertrophy phase and a couple weeks after. It may increase. You put on muscle mass. Guess what that muscle mass will do in the next weeks and months? Make more power output. And so the way that we build muscle in the hypertrophy phase is you lift a lot. So it's medium weight, 4 times per week. So 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on. So traditionally Monday, Tuesday on, Wednesday off, Thursday, Friday on, and then ride your bike on the weekend. And then when we say medium, what do we mean? We give you a spreadsheet in the plan that you determine your 1 resistance maximum, your 1 rep max. It's basically the amount of weight you can squat or leg press or leg curl once, and then you enter that number into our spreadsheet, and then our spreadsheet calculates what you lift for the hypertrophy, strength, and power phases afterwards. So it's very detailed oriented. We tell you how many sets, how many reps, and how much to put on for each of those sets and reps. And
I've been using this for years, long before Optimize was a thing. And it was the same fundamental structure of you put in your max, and then the sheet that Frank and team made calculates that for you. So I would print out my little sheet and take it in the gym. So here's my number of reps, here's the weight, and that progressively builds up.
Yeah.
So you're not having to do math and figure it out, the same way the sweet spot plans or any of the plans. Like once you've got your FTP in there, it auto calculates what and how much, and so you just FTFP. Yeah. Same deal here. Just follow the weight plan.
Yeah, and now we have that spreadsheet in the app, so you can just reference your phone while you're lifting, and the adaptation. You're starting from 0 pounds, but once you set your 1 rep max at the beginning of the hypertrophy phase, then we're having you lift anywhere from 55 to 65% of your 1 rep max. Not that big of a deal, but we do have you do 4 to 6 sets and 10 to 12 reps per set, depending on if you're on the basic or intermediate plan. And so if you're doing the math in your head right now, that could be 120 squats per set. No, wait. Yeah, 120 sets per day. Sorry, I said 120 sets. 120 squats.
Not that much.
Per day.
Yeah.
And then we're having you do it the next day, and then a day, 2 days later, and then another day later. So it's a big overload. And generally, I tell athletes, if you're not sore during the hypertrophy phase, you're not doing it right. So this is where the sideways stair shuffle comes in. And lowering yourself down into your car by holding the door. You're pretty sore. Delayed onset muscle soreness.
Yeah, it's real.
Yeah.
It's a great time to listen to podcasts too. I enjoy just like the change. I'm not a gym rat by any means, but just doing something a little bit different is mentally stimulating. A good time to listen to podcasts, and I'll often ride my bike to and from the gym, just like a nice, easy warm up, cool down.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a nice little break in the day.
That's right. And, so we don't want you to be down in your basement riding your stationary trainer all winter long. This is a chance you go, you're not on the smart trainer. You're not staring at a screen. You're actually at the gym. It's good. Diversifies your training. And guess what you can do at night or when it's freezing cold, you can go to the gym because it's hopefully inside, unless you're like lifting at like Venice Beach or something. But so it's a great thing to do. We get one question I want to answer for you all is, what about the warm up? And so in an ideal situation, you're doing zone 2 for 30 minutes to warm up. Then you're going to do your lifts, and you're going to do zone 2 for 30 minutes to cool down. So it's an hour of riding, complemented with your weightlifting. You do that 3-4 times a week. That's a good 3-4 hours to contribute to just building your aerobic endurance over the winter. Strategies for that, I've done it all. I've done zone 2 on the triangle bike seats at the gym. You walk 30 feet, you do your squats. Same, and then repeat on the cool down. That's the triangle seat gym, but it works. You can wear, if you're really nerd about it, you can wear your heart rate monitor in. You can bring your Garmin, set it down right side, record your data, push it up, get your OTS, life is good. A lot of gyms now have spin bikes. You can do that. You can ride at home and then just hop on the commuter bike and bebop over there. Maybe you can walk to your gym. You can ride to the gym if your situation supports that. Yeah, so you can get creative there. It doesn't need to be by the book. But anywhere. And then also if you don't have 30 minutes on either side of your lifting, you can do 10 or 15 minutes to make it work within your time frame. The point is warm up on the bike. And then you can, and I know I say this, I'm going to eat my words, you could run technically. Just be careful. Don't hurt yourself. You can, here's what I'm going to do. I'll just use myself as an example. My gym conveniently this year is going to be 3 blocks from my house. I'm going to have to cross over 2 streets. I'm going to start by walking, and then I'm going to warm up on the bike at the gym. And then as I get more into the weight program, I might jog there. It might take me 10 minutes. Yeah, nothing. I'm not going to go Steve Prefontaine on anyone.
Baby steps. Steps.
And I'm going to start lifting roughly November 1st because my time frame, I have more time. And but yeah, just to use some examples. And but yeah, if you're warming up, cooling down, it's an hour a day, and you're lifting 4 times a week like you are in the hypertrophy phase. It really helps you not be as sore because it's bringing oxygenated blood to those muscles, carrying away the metabolic byproduct of the lifting. So it helps. It keeps your muscles supple, helps you remind your legs that you're a bike racer, you're not a bodybuilder, and it's good quality aerobic endurance. And so that's a hypertrophy phase. 2 weeks, 4 times per week, generally Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And then you move on to the strength phase. So the strength phase, it's 2 weeks. It's twice a week. And then traditionally, one way we design the plan, it's Monday and Thursday. And now this is the heavy shit part. You're lifting heavy weight. So you're getting up 75, 80, 90% of your 1RM, but we're dropping your reps. So you might do 4 sets, 6 reps per set, and then high weight. And then guess what we have you do the day after you lift?
More lifting.
Not in the strength phase. This is where you begin the neuromuscular sprint training. So you are transferring the strength from the gym onto the bike. And this is the other time of the year we talk about cadence. So if you're on the advanced or pro plan, you're going to do this same day. You're going to lift in the morning. You're going to do your neuromuscular sprint work in the afternoon. If you're a regular Joe like me or maybe a lot of the other listeners, you're going to lift Monday. You're going to sprint Tuesday, day off Wednesday, lift Thursday, sprint Friday, and then ride easy endurance Saturday and Sunday. 2 weeks, low rep, high weight.
An idea is trying to take that strength that you've built and get it to translate to putting power down into the bicycle. Yeah.
So neuromuscular, you've just spent 2 weeks building this new muscle from the hypertrophy phase. And then believe it or not, your nervous system tells your muscles when to contract and retract. So when to fire. And so we use the term neuromuscular to teach that new muscle to become innervated. Your nervous system grows. It's like we teach the nervous system to connect to the new muscle to tell it to fire in a sport-specific, cycling-specific way. And so that's the neuromuscular work. So a traditional sprint interval workout, they're kind of nasty. A lot of people don't like them. They're hard, to be honest. But it's the things that we do to be faster. So it's 4 sets, 4 by 15 seconds on, 15 seconds off, 5 minutes in between sets. You can do it in an hour. You can just crush these on the indoor smart trainer. You can do them outside too. You just need like a good flat road, no cars, that sort of thing. We have you pay attention to cadence. So when you begin the sprint interval, you got 15 seconds to go from 60 RPMs to 110. And then you got 15 seconds to like soft pedal. If you're on a smart trainer, you know that big heavy flywheel that makes it pedal so nicely? it's very challenging to get that thing to slow down in 15 seconds to get back to where you're doing 60 RPM. So I've had athletes do anything from drag their foot on it. They had a broom there to slow the flywheel down. A lot of athletes are just like, F it, I'll do this outside, which is also effective. Just don't try to do these into the wind or uphill, because it really messes with your cadence. You really got to get on top of that gear, and being on flat terrain is favorable for that. So you'll do 2 weeks of that. So you do 4 strength workouts, 4 sprint interval workouts, and then you'll move on to your power phase. One important note, during the strength phase, we begin to increase the amount of time you spend on the bike. So you've gone from 4 times a week during the hypertrophy phase down to twice a week. So that affords you more recovery. You're doing the sprint intervals, so that's more time on the bike. And then we begin to have you ride a little bit longer on the weekends. So rides go from 2.5 to 3 hours, depending on what level of plan you're on, and a little bit on up. And it really kind of paves the way for starting to build your base. Yeah. And
that is a good breaking point here. We've got the last key part of the off season is sweet spot. FasCat Coaching and Training is the home of sweet spot. Frank invented the concept that is now being used literally around the world as part of the training parlance. Yeah.
One thing we didn't mention is the power phase.
We should probably hit that then.
You want to cover that now, or you want to?
Wait, let's hit that now, and then we'll take a quick break, and then we'll talk sweet spot.
Yeah. So the power phase is the final phase of the 10-week weightlifting phase. Now, this is the money phase. Everything you've been doing up until now culminates and gives you the ability to benefit from the power phase. So now you're doing very lightweight. You're going down to 45% of your 1RM. And guess what? It feels like a feather. It feels like it's easy because you got so strong the previous 6-7 weeks. Now you're doing low weight, and you're not even doing that many reps, but you're doing them fast. So we introduced the jump squat. Now the jump squat is where you put 45% 1RM on your back. You lower the squat down, and you lift it up so fast that you get a little bit of air. You actually jump off the ground. And it's very safe. We'll teach you how to do it. I've had athletes up to 70 years old do these jump squats, no problem. If you do have a bad back or anything like that, just make sure you really teach yourself how to learn how to do the squat in the adaptation phase. Generally, we've had no injuries from this plan in 20 years, by the way. Because everyone's like, you want me to do what? And we're like, yeah, we want you to jump. And they're like, this is where the non-cyclist in the gym look at you like you're on crack.
Right.
Skinny white kid or whomever, like shaved legs. Maybe you're wearing Lycra because you rode your bike there. People are like, who is that? What are you doing? But anyway, do the jump squats. It's all about the velocity of the movement. The fast. It's imagine yourself pedaling that fast, and this is what really helps make the whole entire weightlifting plan sport specific. It's the power phase is the easiest, but you still are working hard. It just doesn't feel near as hard as that hypertrophy phase with a lot of the muscle soreness. And then similar to the strength plan, we have you do more neuromuscular work the day after in the same style of training as the strength phase. The neuromuscular work is slightly different. We have you do standing starts. So you go from 0 RPMs to 120 RPMs in 15 seconds. And contrary to the name, they're not standing at all. They just we have you do them seated because you're going to recruit more muscular. You're going to recruit more of your muscular groups and plus your glutes to contribute to the power production in your pedal stroke. So they're seated despite the standing starts. But you go from
standing like a track stand is, and you're not moving,
right.
Or you're moving very slowly. That's the standing part, like a standstill, not standing up out of the saddle.
Yeah, so imagine doing a track stand, 0 RPM, 0 speed, and then you're in the big ring, you're like in middle cog, and you give it. In the first 3 to 4 seconds, you're incredibly overgeared, high tension. Then in the middle of the interval, you kind of start to get on top of the gear. That's when your power goes over 1,000 watts. And then in the final third of the interval, you're going to need to click down your cassette to stay on top of that gear so you don't like run out of power. And then we do want you to hit 120 RPM. So you're spinning like a gerbil, like, real quick, 15 seconds on. And then we give you 90 seconds of recovery. So they're not quite as bad as the sprint intervals, the 15 on, 15 off. It's 15 on, minute and a half off. A lot of athletes get bored because we have you do 4 sets, 4 reps per set. And it takes a while with that 90 seconds recovery. But be patient. Again, you can do these indoors or outdoors. Actually, I find you can get more out of your legs outdoors. You can really grip those handlebars, torque on the pedals, really feel your acceleration. But again, you can do them on the indoor trainer. Make sure your smart trainer is locked down. I've heard stories of athletes walking their trainer across the room when they do these. And then also the flywheel in 90 seconds does have time to slow down. So there's that. But again, that's like 3 weeks, twice a week, generally Mondays, Thursdays, standing starts, Tuesdays, Fridays, off day Wednesday, and then fun endurance rides Saturday, Sunday. And that, my friends, is the end of the 10-week weightlifting plan. Yeah. We have that as part of the 30-week plan. It's also a standalone 10-week plan. And then, as I referenced earlier, it does exist as an at-home plan without the leg press and the leg curl and the Viper and the kettlebell substitution.
Lots of different ways to slice it.
That's right.
And again, you can check in with your coaches in Optimize as to what you should do and when. What we're going to do now is take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
This podcast and our weekly training tip emails focus on translating the science and art of endurance training into actionable, impactful tips that you can use to get faster and have more fun on the bike. This podcast and our training tips emails are made entirely possible by our listeners, like you, subscribing to our new training platform, Optimize, or hiring a one-on-one FasCat coach. Optimize is your year-round training solution that includes not only unlimited access to all of our training plans and workouts, but also live in-app support from our team of professional coaches, plus discounts on Castelli, Whoop, Hammerhead, Ventum, and more. And of course, Optimize is based on the best training plans in the world paired with our proprietary Training to Recovery data visualization that combines your power meter data with your wearable data. If you want to take your training to the next level, we can help. We have been coaching athletes from Tour de France pros to Masters Janes and Joes for a combined 75 years. And it is our goal to give you more value than the price of an Optimize subscription. To learn more about the benefits of Optimize or to get to know our coaches, head over to FasCatCoaching.com. Use the 25% discount code 25podcast. 25 podcast to see for yourself.
And we're back. We're talking 16 weeks of Sweet Spot, which is a tried and true standalone plan and is also part of our complete off-season 30-week training plan. Again, Frank, start from the top. What is Sweet Spot?
Sweet spot is a balanced amount of intensity and training adaptation that enables you to get more bang for your buck. Go over to FasCatCoaching.com. You can read the original Sweet Spot Advanced Aerobic Endurance training tip, but is our style of designing workouts to help you get more time out of your limited time within building your base. So everyone's heard of piles of miles, building base, LSD, Zone 2. The thing that we find with Masters athletes is they can accomplish more by sweet spot training than they can by riding Zone 2 alone. And so in our sweet spot training plans, in our 16 weeks of sweet spot base, or any of our individual 6-week to sweet spot plans, you're going to have a lot of sweet spot intervals. You're going to have a lot of unstructured sweet spot work. That's not to say there's not Zone 2 work. There is. There's plenty of that. It's just that when the time is right, the way that we design the plans, you can get more out of your body, more adaptations, more benefits when you train in sweet spot. So that's what our sweet spot plans are. Now, we got a 16-week plan. It is V2 of our original 18-week plan. So our 18-week sweet spot plan was, if you know, we started off with sweet spot part 1 for 6 weeks, and then people said, what do I do next? And we said, okay, here's sweet spot part 2. They did that for 6 more weeks, and they said, what do I do next? And then we said, okay, let's design sweet spot part 3. And then they said, what do we do next? And we're like, now it's time to switch from base to race. Do your intervals. But the original 18 weeks of sweet spot was just sweet spots parts 1, 2, and 3 combined. What we learned from you all, thank you very much for your feedback, is that there's several enhancements and improvements that we made to the 16-week sweet spot plan. So number 1, so we have you test at the beginning, in the middle, and the end of the plan. So test at the beginning of the plan. This is coming out of the weight room. You're going to set your zones. Your zones, your FTP, your threshold, when you're lifting weights, don't really matter in the fall foundation. So imagine this. You're going to go from like your last race in the season in August, September. You're not going to do a threshold test till you begin the 16 weeks of sweet spot, which may be December, January. So everyone rejoice, because we know the 20-minute test gets a bad rap, but the thing is, you're going to be doing things, you're going to want to be doing things that are hard in your events and your goals. You need to be able to go hard for 20 minutes. It's good for you. Puts hair on your chest. Yeah, to borrow a phrase from olden years. Anyway, so we have you test at the beginning to set your zones. That gives you the ability to achieve precise physiological adaptations from tempo or sweet spot or VO2 max. And then we have you test 8 weeks later just to make sure you're improving, to update your zones. And then we have you test a final time at the end of the plan to measure your improvement. Make sure you're on the right track, help you feel good about your training, update your zones for you doing your intervals coming up next. So that's our 16 weeks of plan. And the way that we combine sweet spots parts 1, 2, and 3 is the original 18-week plan didn't really have rest weeks, and it was kind of funky. So the 16 weeks of sweet spot plan follows the 3-week on, 1 week off training plan design. And so there's 4 mesocycles, 3 weeks on, 1 week off. And then during COVID, we had invented the sweet spot part 4 plan. So 6 weeks, sweet spot part 4. That's the sweet spot plan that has you fresh is faster, doing the 3, 4, 5 minute VO2 max progression. So we included that in the 16 weeks of sweet spot. It's the final cherry on top of building your base. So you're building your base, and then now you're doing some VO2 max work, which is incredible for increasing your threshold. And then you're doing really quite long rods on Saturdays and Sundays. So the 16 weeks of sweet spot plan now incorporates the best 3 weeks of each sweet spot part 1, 2, 3, and 4 plan. And everyone that goes through this, if you do the work, guaranteed you'll come out with a higher threshold, feeling like a new cyclist. Like you've lifted, you've built up a really big base, and you're flying. You're ready to do your intervals. You can race, you can do B races during this time. You're in such a good position to have just a phenomenal season.
And it's fully well-rounded. Like the name is Sweet Spot, but as Frank said, it is not just doing a sweet spot. There is a whole variety of things. Mm-hmm. So coming off of a great muscular foundation from being in the weight room, then you're building up the base miles, then you're hitting each of the different systems. So you are a fully robust cycling athlete ready to go for your season. And then, of course, we've got specific plans for many races that will drop you off, right on race day. And if we don't happen to have a particular plan for your exact event, we've got a lot of road-specific plans, criterium-specific plans, mountain bike, gravel, etc., that will do just that. But if you do nothing else but follow this 30-week off-season plan, you're gonna be pretty much ready to go.
You're a new cyclist. Your friends may not like you on the group road.
and the testing part, as you said, is like not necessarily the most fun thing to do, mm-hmm. but it's necessary, and the proof's in the pudding. Like test yourself now, and then at the start and the middle and the end, and you can watch as you grow. Like that's ultimately what you're after, right? You're looking to get faster and have more fun on the bike. That's what we're preaching here. That's what we're teaching here. That's the walk we are walking. And if you're not getting faster, then that's, I don't want to say defeating the point, but like that's ultimately what we're after. It's not just keeping you busy.
Right. Yeah.
We are results oriented.
Yes.
And that's how you know that this stuff is working.
Yeah, that's right. Faster is funner, to borrow the Zwift slogan. And, you're not doing sweet spot workouts every day. You're going to do like 2 sweet spot workouts per week. You're going to follow the fatigue dependent training plan design, working man and woman's training plan design. So traditionally Mondays, Fridays off. You're going to do a sweet spot workout on Tuesday and then probably again on Saturday. Tuesday is structured, Saturday is unstructured. We're going to have you do a workload, like an OTS ride, where it's like 3, 4, 5 hours. We're going to challenge you with a set amount of sweet spot work to do. So it could be anywhere from 45 to 90 minutes, maybe even upwards of 2 hours worth of sweet spot work inside the 4 to 5 hour ride. Generally, tempo Wednesdays and zone 2 on Thursdays and Sundays. Yeah. There's rest weeks every 4 weeks. There's generally there's a field test, like I said, at week 8 at the end of a rest week. And then there's a field test at the end of the plan, like what Ben was just saying. Really, honestly, it's so motivating when you test higher, and it's when you've done the work, it's really great to see the results. Absolutely.
Another way you can tell that the proof is in the pudding is by your data, not just your FTP data, but your wearable and data for your sleep and HRV. And that's a cool thing that is built into Optimize, is your body will let you know, not just in terms of how you're feeling, but in terms of what your data is reporting. If you are overly tired, if there's too much training and not enough recovery, that's one thing we don't know at FasCat, is what the rest of your life looks like. I mean, with one-on-one coaching, for sure, there's a lot of conversation back and forth. But if you're using Optimize, you're not a one-on-one coach athlete. We don't know the minutia of your life, but your body does, and your body will report that, and that's something that you can track with your HRV data and your sleep data. And you can do that on your own, but with Optimize, it's baked right into the system, so you can look at what your training load is on a day-to-day basis and look what your recovery data is telling you. And if it's out of balance, the needle will let you know, hey, maybe back it off a bit. And the app literally gives you recommendations of like, maybe scale it back a little today. Or if you've not been as diligent as you should and you've been skipping some workouts, Optimize will know. It's like Santa Claus, it's like, hey, you're fully rested, a little overly rested. Why don't you get back at it? So you've got a couple different ways to stay on track. I think a lot of us find the data to be very motivating. So it's not just this abstract theoretical thing that some people are talking about on a podcast. This is your data, this is your experience, and you're literally watching the needle move.
You're watching your own needle. Yeah. And speaking of OTS and training to recovery balance, so don't really pay attention to your training load during the fall foundation and the weight program. Starting with like the strength phase, and remember how I said that's when we begin to have you ride more? That's like your ground zero for beginning to start to track your training load. So you can track that in the app now. We take your OTS, we calculate your training load. So from the moment you bring in your strength phase to when you complete your power phase and you move on to the 16 weeks of sweet spot, your training load is going to go up roughly at a ramp rate between 3 and 6 per week times 20 weeks. And so if you use 4 times 20, that's about 80. So if you're like 20 or 30 when you're in the weight room, you might come out 80, 85 by the time that you complete that 30-week plan. So really good training load, and then you don't have to worry about training load anymore because you're switching over from base to race.
Yeah, it's a good point about just like you shouldn't be watching your wattage necessarily when you're doing the MTIs. The training load isn't necessarily a thing in the front end of the weight room.
That's right. Yeah, just let it free fall, let it do what it's going to do, and then start paying attention to it. Strength phase, sweet spot phase.
So this has been episode number 5 in our 8-week series. If you haven't listened to the other ones, you can go back and check out season end training, the season review, setting goals for next season, and how to take the proper postseason break. Coming up, we dive into weightlifting more, and then some alternative exercises you could consider for rounding out your physiology. But in the meantime, I think we will leave it there, Frank, unless there's something I've inadvertently skipped over again for the second time on this podcast.
I think we covered that. That was a good one. Thanks, everyone, to listening. Good luck if you're still racing. And if you're not, don't forget to, take the postseason break, do the things, and get on our off-season training. Yeah. So with that, we will bid you adieu until next week and remind you to work hard, ride fast, have fun, and as always, FTF. Peace.